Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hire Moment Mastermind. Happy New Year, our last day of the year. Delighted to have you here. Didn't mean to rhyme there. All right, so let's go ahead and kick things off. It's just me today. Vern is still on vacation. He'll be hopefully with us back next week. And we'll just, keep it light and simple. So who would like to start us off with a job search question? Ty, you're on mute.
Sorry, I have a question and a comment. I had a phone screening with an HR person. I think I handled it wrong the way I did it. I wasn't expecting this. I expected the behavioral questions, but it was basically this person went through my application or the jobs I listed, every job.
Yep.
Confirmed like dates and everything, because some of them I didn't have dates on because I didn't really wanted to protect my age. And also then went through like every job and basically said, did you do this, this, and this? And I think I kind of messed up because I thought like, well, probably what I should have done to prepare for that interview is I did look at the job description, but my comments should have reflected directly what was in the job description and said, well, I looked at the job description, I did this and this, and as opposed to like the hiring manager, the type of interview. Can you comment on the differences in interviews possibly?
Oh yeah. Yeah. What you're talking about is pretty classic, Ty. What you're mentioning is the kind of the first phone screen. Okay. And that's often done by an HR person, recruiter, somebody like that often. Okay. Not always. Sometimes they reverse it. Sometimes they'll do the hiring manager first and the HR recruiter second, or hiring manager first, HR person second. If there's ever a real recruiter, like their title is recruiter or talent acquisition or whatever, they are typically the first person. It's very rare to have a hiring manager first and then a recruiter, but it is possible to have a hiring manager and then an HR person. Because in that case, it's normally a small company. The HR person is like, hey, hiring manager, you just take care of your first level, make sure they're qualified, then I'll deal with culture fit. That happens maybe 20% of the time. I'm making up a number. But normally it's what you're talking about. And what they're doing there is they're just qualifying you in terms of your the credibility of your candidacy, I guess is maybe the better way to say that. Like, when did you do what? Is there consistency here? Does everything make sense? Again, I use this phrase 1,000 times. They're minimizing their risk. Okay.
Right.
They're saying, okay, is he legit? Is what he said on paper the same thing as what he's saying in, live? Are you being accurate? Are you credible? Are you trustworthy? That kind of thing. And yes, have you checked all the kind of major boxes in terms of skill set? And you're absolutely right. In preparing for an interview, you absolutely need to thoroughly vet that position description. You need to go through every line, every word, every I, every T, and say, okay, they're looking for X. Here is where I have X. Not here's where I've done Y, Z, P, D, and Q. But you've got to marry that up because they don't care about what's not relevant to them. They only care about what's relevant to them. They only care about, have you done the things that we need you to do? That's it. They're scanning. I remember I was doing a search, a few months ago, I guess it was. And there was this very specific skill set that my client needed. Very, very particular type of a background. And I literally, my eyes like scanned down that, like, do they have it? Because if they didn't, I literally couldn't vet them. Or if I thought maybe they did, that was the first question that I asked. Do you have X? Because that X thing was a screener outer. Like my client was insistent. They must have X. It was a certain kind of experience with the federal government, actually. And if they didn't, if they had Y, I literally could not even have an interview with them. Okay. Because that's how particular most employers are. They've got something, one or two or three things that are must-haves. And so you need to look down that description and say, all right, well, look in the requirements section. Remember, there's the qualifications or requirements, whatever they call it. Look at the first few bullets, 3 or 4, and say, what are the must-haves? Now, sometimes they'll say preferred. Preferred often still means required, usually, because they really do prefer it. Okay.
Yes.
Absolutely. They say preferred because what they're doing is they're preferring candidates who have it over ones who don't. Okay. So technically it's not a requirement, but if they had somebody, if they can find the person who has the preferred, they're going to go with that person every time. Okay. So that's why it kind of means requirement. And so your job is to look through and say, do I meet their requirements and their preferences? If you don't, it doesn't mean you can't apply. It's a free country. Okay. But you've got to manage your expectations that in a market that's very tight. And when I say tight, I mean, there are lots of people getting jobs, don't get me wrong, but employers are still looking for unicorn candidates. In fact, I've actually given a presentation, actually two, around this. I'm going to give another one soon, to employers who are saying, but if we have the great resignation and everybody's leaving, there's all these people on the market, why can't I find good people? I mean, it is literally a phrase. You could actually probably Google it. Okay. I mean, that's how often employers are saying this. And I said, because your requirements are still too rigid, because you're still looking for the unicorn candidate. And there are plenty of people out there who have transferable skills, who all this stuff, and you're not taking it because you, employer, you don't want to train. You don't want to take time to train. You don't want an onboard. You don't want a learning curve or anything. You're looking for rigid. And that's why you're not finding the right people. I don't care how many people are in the market. If you're looking for a purple squirrel and all there are brown squirrels, right? You can't find the person. So I'm out there preaching on the other side, telling people to, in fact, I'll tell you the name of the presentation I'm giving in beginning of February. It's to the Virginia Society of Association Executives. So it's executive directors of associations in Virginia. Okay. And the name of my presentation title is Stop Looking for the Unicorn! Exclamation point. That's literally his presentation. So I'm out there beating the drum for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I'm hearing it. I'm just hearing it a lot. So that's a long answer to your question, Ty, but the more important thing for you is that as people are still looking for unicorns, okay, your job is to show them that you are, to the extent that you are. And if you don't check every box twice, you check 1.5 boxes, let's say, tell them that and say, look, you asked for X, I've got X. You asked for Y, I'm familiar with Y. I have exposure to Y. I have an interest in Y. I'm really open to learning Y. But that means you've got to overcome it before they even ask. So your job is to match your narrative to their narrative. Because if you don't, it'll be brand confusion. If you don't, when they say to you, so tell me about a greatest accomplishment, and if all you do is just say, well, there's this one time that I did blah, 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 and that story has nothing to do with the job, they're lost because they don't understand how you're a good fit for the role.
Right.
That helpful?
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is I missed an opportunity to say to them, okay, I see in your job description, this is what you're looking for. I've done this. And then they could have checked the box. It wasn't the behavioral questions like, tell me about a time when you solved a difficult problem. It was pretty much go through, have you done this? Have you done that? How many calls have you taken? That type of thing. They're just looking for the match.
It's what I call the have you, can you. Right. That's it. And you're right. And you should expect that generally from your first level interview. The behavioral interview questions, if they show up, are often going to show up in the second level with the hiring manager, usually.
Right. And there were some questions she said, well, that's a question the hiring manager has to answer.
Yeah. But he or she just wants to make sure that they are using their time, the hiring manager's time wisely by only meeting with people who check the basic boxes.
And I guess the other signal was she told me that she was typing. So she said, I said, if you need me to repeat something, please do. I think at the end I should have tried to match up, like she gave me an opportunity each job, try to match that up and say, well, these are the key points in this job that I think that I could bring to your organization. Yeah. I worked here and I did this. This would help your organization. And that's the point that I missed. I should have done that.
Okay. So now you know for next time.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a really good lesson, Ty. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
All right.
Because other interviews I've had, it was pretty much very short. very short interview, 15 minutes. That was it.
Yeah.
And it was nothing like that. I mean, excuse me, with the HR person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very common what you experienced.
Can I share a situation? I saw a job announcement for GIHA. GIHA is one of the federal health insurance options. And it looked like a great announcement for me. It would be a sales job, but a little bit different than what I'm used to, but I certainly met the qualifications. So I put together my resume and I went through my LinkedIn connections. And I found a few people who were already with GIHA, and I connected to maybe 5 or 6 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote, and once they agreed to connect, I wrote a message to one of them named Jennifer. And I wrote, "Hi, Jennifer, GIHA has posted a job announcement for an account manager in DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia. And I feel that I'm well qualified for the role. So I'm going to try to respond to it tonight. But I thought I would try to connect with someone who might be able to answer a few questions I have about the organization and the job. It would also be helpful to know if GIHA uses an applicant tracking system. Would you be able to have a discussion? Thank you for any help you can provide. Sincerely, Carolyn Wasserman."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't get anything from her,
Right.
although she did connect with me that same day.
Mm-hmm.
Then I found another man named
Wait, let me press pause, Sarah Lynn. Okay. What could have happened there, that in meaning that when she accepted, is that she might have only seen the first couple of lines of your note and did not hit the read more button or the see more button to see everything else that you wrote. So she might have literally missed your request. In fact, if she did it on her phone, she might not have seen it at all. Because oftentimes when we go to our phones and look at the notifications, or invitations rather, oftentimes literally all it'll show us is the picture of the person, their profile, but not the note. Typically you have to be on your PC to see that somebody actually wrote you a note. So she literally may not have seen it. So I would write her back and say, "Hi, so-and-so, thanks so much for agreeing to, thanks so much for connecting with me, doubling back on my message." And then I would keep it, Serlin, really short. You were very gracious in how you wrote that. It's a little bit long though, okay? For folks who are just going like Mach 5. So I would keep it super short. I'm applying for a position at X. Would love to chat with you to see if you can explain, share more insights about the culture, something like that, really quick, and then write her back, because now that you are a first level connection, you can use the message button.
Okay.
So message her, and then if you still don't hear back,
that's actually what I did for that message.
You did. So you wrote her back when she connected?
So I first connected, as I learned in the class.
Yeah.
I first connected with about 5 people.
Yeah.
And they connected. They agreed to connect. And then I used the email.
The messaging. Okay. Oh, so that message that you shared was once she connected.
Correct.
Oh, I thought it was in your connection invitation. I'm sorry.
No. So these are the people who agreed to connect with me. And I have one more that I wrote. There's a man named Earl, and he's actually a sales manager at GIHA. Okay. He's in the Philadelphia area. He might or might not be my boss if I were hired, but I didn't want to assume. So I wrote, "Hi, Earl. I saw a GIHA job announcement for an account manager for DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia, and felt I was well qualified for the role. I just applied to the job, but was earlier looking for GIHA employees who might be able to give me relevant info pertaining to GIHA, the announced position, and, in parentheses, most importantly, help in getting through the applicant tracking system, and in parentheses, assuming there is one. Earl, I've attached my resume here for your review. If you feel that I might be a good fit for this position, would you please forward this resume to your HR representative? Also, any advice, help, and/or guidance would be most appreciated. Thank you." And then I put my name and my phone number.
Yeah. So
resume.
Yeah, and that's all lovely. And just so you know, anybody who's outside of HR is likely not going to know anything about the applicant tracking system. Just so you know that. The only people who know anything about ATSs are HR people, recruiters.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's an HR tool. In fact, other employees may not even know that what that even means.
Okay.
So you just
So
to manage your expectations. Yeah, just to manage your expectations around that. Yeah.
Okay. So
And
yeah,
frankly, even the HR people don't necessarily know how it all works internally, because ATSs are very complicated and they don't necessarily know. They're just as frustrated with it as you are with it, because they don't know the back end necessarily, and what's best to upload and how the algorithm works, and it's confusing. So just FYI.
Okay. Well, for Earl, it was the same thing. I asked to connect to him. He agreed. And then I used the InMail system to write that. So I'm getting there.
Yeah. No, it's good. I'm glad that you're reaching out. So at some point, hopefully somebody will actually respond back,
Hopefully.
So, and the other thing too, is if the person is a second level connection to you, feel free to leverage the name of the person, the one or more people, well, one of the people through whom you are connected. Not to say that that person referred you, because that's not true, but just to simply say, hi, John, second level connection, you and I are mutually connected through Susie Cream Cheese, right? And just name dropping sometimes can help just smooth it out a little bit, just to make it a little bit more personal. Not that Susie referred me, right? But you and I are connected. We have a mutual connection, Susie,
Okay.
Okay. All right. So who has another question?
I have a question, Shira. I had a sort of a conversation with the company this past week, which was sort of an initial conversation about an opportunity. The problem was is that it's kind of in a different area department of the company that I'm particularly interested in, and so I'm more interested in a sales role in this company, and the position is in the operations team, which is sort of more kind of
back end.
Yeah. But it would be a foot in the door. So and so the person I talked to knew my background, which I have some sales experience, but also the reason why they wanted to talk to me is because I've also done some of the operations work. And she, to her credit, pretty much right at the outset, she was very nice about it, but she was like, she just wanted to make clear, well, this is really, they're looking for really people who want to be in operations and stay in operations. And is it possible for people to move over to sales eventually? She's like, never say never, and sure. But she really kind of, and again, in a nice way, but really kind of drove when they're really looking for a long-term operations person. And that's less interested of me, but she did say never say never. And it's not inconceivable, because again, she knows my background. And so the way I answered it was basically, she was like, are you comfortable with that? And I said, listen, I said, I'd be less than honest if I said I wasn't interested, if I said I wasn't interested in moving to sales at some point. I mean, that's because it's true. I mean, I kind of do. However, I recognize the importance of operations, and I recognize it's essential. And I tried to sort of play both sides, and I don't know. I mean,
at the end of the day, Dan, look, at the end of the day, she was trying to be honest and say, look, we want somebody who naturally wants this role. It's not something that you naturally want. And the fact is that you would probably slog through it every day until you maybe could get your foot in the door with sales. And who knows when that's going to happen. And so you want to make the best use of your time and the best use of their time. And the fact is that she was really clear. They want a long-term fit. That's their need. Their need is not somebody who's going to come in 3 months, 6 months, even a year later, say, knock, knock, I want to go into sales, because that's what they want. They want a long-term fit. And that doesn't sound like something that you're going to be interested in. Sounds like you're going to really try to bide your time on the hope that maybe they're going to hire you, but they're not going to want to promote you or move you over in a year. And even then, you're probably going to be pretty frustrated.
Yeah, maybe.
Just saying.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair. I mean, the one thing I feel like that we working in my favor is the fact that I think much more experienced than the people they're normally talking to. Like a lot of the people they previously had for these op roles are sort of younger folks just out of school kind of thing. And they recognize that I've got this extra experience. And so given that, they might be willing to work with me down the road. So, but I don't know. I mean, it's a fair point. We talked for 90 minutes. It was more of a conversation than an interview. And so I thought it went well, but I haven't heard from them. So
yeah, no, their business need is clearly somebody who really wants ops, period. Yeah. Who loves that kind of, and there are plenty of people out there who do, right? So that they're probably going to keep looking for somebody who loves it. If you had said, oh my God, if it was true, if you had said, look, I know, my background is not ops, this, that, but man, oh man, like it's just something I love to do. Okay, different. But that's not the case for you. But had it been,
I mean, I really do want to get my foot in the door. It would be a great company to work for, I think, but I can BS occasionally, but I can't fake.
No. And nor should you. You need to be truthful, honest to what you're looking for and make sure that it's the right fit. So going forward, when you see opportunities that are the right sector, but the wrong job, think 5 times before you apply, because a lot of times, and I know you're one of those people, there are a lot of people out there who are looking for a particular industry, sector, mission, right? That kind of thing. But remember, I always talk about, I used to call it tribe and lane. I've shifted to community and lane. Okay. So your community is who you want to serve and your lane is how you want to serve, right? Your profession. It's 2 different things. And we can often conflate the 2. We got to separate them out. So for folks like you who are looking for a community, you've got to also look at the lane, at the role itself. Because at the end of the day, it's a job. You're going to get there and do the job every day, regardless of mission. In fact, I know a lot of people who, and I know this isn't your case per se, but there are a lot of people I've met who are, let's say, come from corporate, corporate fortune, corporate. And they'll call me and say, Sharon, I really want to get into what? Fill in the blank? Nonprofit. Okay. So many corporate people want to get into nonprofit. Why? Because they want to do good and they want to make an impact and they want wonderful. It's great. But at the end of the day, and Dan, you have spent your life in nonprofits, you understand this. A nonprofit has its own challenges and I could tick them off my fingers. Okay? There's no perfect place in the world. It's still a job. And the mission, as great as it is, it's wonderful. There's still a job to do. And you still have to like the work, okay? And the culture and the pace and all of that. And it still needs to make sense so that you're going to want to stay there for a longer period of time. So when you're looking at these roles, think about what you are being asked to do, not just for whom you're being asked to do it for.
No, in this case, I was very conscious of it. I mean, I was sort of like I did, but it's a small company. They don't have a lot of sales positions. And I just feel like in this world, in general, there are not a lot of opportunities. So in terms of getting my foot in the door, but I'm very, very cognizant of the specific role and what the company needs as opposed to what I want. So I get that. But at the same time, I feel like I can't, given how long my search has been, I feel like I shouldn't pass up an opportunity on applying to some of these limited opportunities. Just, even if the role itself isn't quite right for me, like with just on the whole foot in the door kind of argument. And
so I would say this, and I've said this before to others. If that is the case, and I respect the whole, I want to stop my job search, right? Just land. If that is the case, and you, first of all, that they even end up accepting you, right? For a role for which you are not thrilled. But let's just say that is the case. And you're getting in the door or you want to get in the door because of the mission, or you want to get into something else. You will have to make sure that you do not have cognitive dissonance when you start the job. Period. You have got to settle yourself and say, I'm putting my head down for as long as it takes. I'm not going to complain about this. I'm not going to like knock on their door in 3 months. I'm actually going to mentally say, job, it's paying the bills. Thank God for it. Move forward, do your job, right? And should something come along in the future, great. But you can't go in there with under false pretenses.
No, right. And I think I would, that's the thing. I wouldn't necessarily be thrilled all the time, but I like to think I would recognize that. And I know what I signed up for, and I'm going to put my head down, and I'm going to work hard and do what I can. And then, if down the road, if something comes up, fantastic. Anyway, so I've taken up too much time, but thank you.
Yeah, sure. It's very common what you're going through. I get it. All right. Other questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to piggyback on what Dan was commenting. I interviewed with an organization, great mission. The hiring manager pretty much pushed aside their mission, said, look, this is what we need. This is what we're doing. Basically said, we're like Amazon, what we sell. We're like a bookstore, and pretty much played it down. And then right away, a red flag went up to me and said, is this really where I want to work at? Because I don't want to work at an Amazon type company. So I think it's my moral or my lesson would be is we're vetting them as they're vetting us to make sure that that's the place we want to work at. That's
right. That's true. It's a marriage. They don't have more control than you do. They're not, you might feel like they have the upper hand if you've got your hand out, but the reality is it's equal, right? They have a business need. You have skill sets. They're paying you money to fulfill their needs. It's an equal relationship. Keep that in mind.
I have a question. I met a gal who's a recruiter, young gal, and we Zoomed. So she interviewed me. She said she would like to represent me and try to help me find a position. Her enthusiasm was great. She sent me a thank you note. And so she's very aggressive. And I'm happy to have her work for me. That's, there's no money involved, etc. She said, in looking at my resume, I worked in sales for 20 years for the same company, and that job ended in 2015. Since then, I've had 2 other jobs with federal government, and now I'm looking to get back into sales. So remember, that ended in 2015. She says that I should try to pull from the other 2 jobs. That 2015 is getting to be a little long in the tooth for trying to get back into sales.
When she said you need to pull from the other 2 jobs, what does she mean by that?
To try and get a position that's more aligned with those other 2 jobs.
Which are not sales? You said they were in the federal government.
Sales. They were in the federal government, not sales.
Yeah. Well, to her point, the market tends to reward you for what you've done in the last 5 to 10 years ish. Okay. Because they want more recent experience, which does not mean to say that they wouldn't hire you, that somebody's not going to hire you for a sales job. They very well might. It depends on how you frame things, and also how your resume comes across. I haven't seen your resume, but if your resume is all sales, meaning where sales in the headline and sales in the competencies and sales all over the place, and you minimize your federal government experience, you mention it, but don't overly give, just little mention it. It was there, by the way, tuck it away. It can be helpful in your branding. I mean, she has a point. I mean, I can't deny it. There are some employers and be like, hey, you haven't done this in a minute. On the other hand, if everything else brands you as sales and you come across like a salesperson, you sound and walk and talk like a salesperson, then, it's more likely that people will say, yeah, got it. She took a hiatus. She still has the skill set. She can get back on the bike, not a big deal. So I wouldn't take what she's saying as I mean, I respect what she's saying. I really do, but it's not the end of it. Yeah. Okay. Who else?
I guess I can sort of piggyback on that question there. During that HR interview, they asked me the dates and for some of my experience, and I had gone back into the 90s. So I told her, I said, I put information on my resume that was relevant to the job. I don't know if that was a way to screen me out and say, oh, I think you're too old, or she just needed to know to pass along to the hiring manager. But I did tell her the dates because it was relevant. It was an association job. I wanted to show that quite a bit of association experience also.
So your association experience was in that older period?
Yeah, 90s, but in the 90s. So I put that on there. I didn't list it on the resume, but she wanted to know the date, so I told her. The dates. But I felt like, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I shouldn't have put that on there.
It's tricky, Ty. It's very, very tricky. Because you're right, age discrimination happens all the time. It's why I recommend not to put dates, any dates beyond 20 years. And it sounds like you didn't. It sounds like you have maybe a prior experience section where you listed, yeah. And I do that too for some of my clients. But it is tricky because if you do that, then yeah, people, I mean, it's not, I will say this, it's a little unusual for her to have asked you to list your dates out that far back. Most people wouldn't do that. So on balance, I think the risk is, it's fine to take. But that said, it is a risk. And you just saw that. So I think on balance, yeah, having the association experience there is probably your better bet. Hopefully she's not going to discriminate on age. But you know, you got to make that decision. It's a personal choice, I guess. It's like with everything, you just got to weigh it out.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
If nobody else is going to say anything, may I again? I have a cousin who works for the Department of Energy. Oh no, yes, Department of Energy. And she thinks strongly that the federal government is there's going to be a big wave of hiring because of the bill that just recently passed.
Oh, the one of vaccinations?
The not Build Back Better, but
the infrastructure bill.
The infrastructure bill.
Oh wait, why is that?
She thinks that the monies are going to flow and that there's going to be infrastructure being built.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not because of people leaving, but because of they need to hire people. Oh yeah, sure, that makes sense.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I wanted to get your take.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a federal government expert. Don't claim to be at all. I mean, I would know just as much or as little as you would. So, yeah. Okay. When we used to have Corliss or Tenny on this call, that was their background, and they could usually opine, you know, about these kinds of things. But that, and in addition to that, though, what has been happening for a while is retirements. Lots of retirements in the federal government, and so they'll need to be backfilling that too, because with, you know, in the government and in education, those are the two sectors these days that still have pension plans. So people still can retire at normal age, whatever that is, you know, depends on the person and, you know, the situation. But so yeah, so they're leaving, which we're in the corporate sector, the private sector rather, that isn't the case anymore. People are staying in their jobs longer. So I think retirements are also going to affect things.
Just to I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go Ty.
Just to piggyback on that comment, I guess I'm on Corliss's email list, and just yesterday, I think it was, I received an email that had 2 job openings. Didn't pertain to me, but it tells me that there must be some you know, starting more hiring in the federal government. That's the message I got. Maybe it was just an incident where, you know, she was looking for people. I don't know.
Shira, I've got another quick question for you. Any tips or advice for one of these? It's from a screening interview for a recruiter. It's a video interview, 2 questions, 5 takes, a minute for the first question, a minute and a half for the second question. You know, and I've done this once before. And again, it's the initial screening thing, and then they're very general questions. One's an introduction, 2 is like, why are you the best person for this position? Just in terms of how to do it.
This whole video thing is really still pretty new. So I don't have any best practices to share per se. It's not my experience. I don't ask people to do that. Although I did have one candidate once who did it proactively. She just did it. She just sent one to me. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But you know, look, I would say this is, you'll obviously script it out, okay, clearly. And when you do, you're gonna have to do I don't know what platform they use, or whether are you supposed to just record yourself on Zoom and send it in, or do they have a platform?
It's yeah, I can't remember what it was.
Whatever, it's their own thing. Okay.
Right.
So you'll have to figure out some way to, like, maybe just like you can do here on Zoom, you can minimize the screen. See if you can do that so that you can actually see your script behind, on your screen, on your monitor. If you can do that, then you can read from it. Okay. That's just one, that's a technical thing. But in terms
of, doesn't look too obvious, like that I mean, again, I know you said before, try and place it right under the camera. So you look, like, I'm hesitant to, on one hand, I would like to actually be reading directly off a script, but I don't want to sound scripted.
Then just don't sound scripty. Read it so that you don't sound scripty. No, seriously, one can do that. It's possible. It's very possible. It's very possible. You just have to read it like you're talking it.
And it doesn't look too obvious that you're actually reading something.
And they would probably expect it anyway. I wouldn't worry about that. Don't worry about sounding too scripted. Just read it like you're reading a story to somebody. Okay. You're reading a story to somebody. You don't read it like a robot. You read it with some inflection in your voice, right? Mm-hmm. The lilt, you make it sound conversational. So read it over and over, and then maybe practice it with somebody just so that it sounds kind of natural. So that's that piece of it. As for the content, look, you want to get to the point quickly. So if it's an introduction or why you're best qualified, your goal here is to speak to their need in your narrative. It's kind of the all roads have led me to this job kind of a thing. So it's not like, oh, well, what you don't want to do is have it's the answer to the question, tell me about yourself. Okay. What you don't want to do is say, well, back in 1924, and give the whole history. That's irrelevant to people. Right. You want to be highlighting, almost puddle jumping through your background to lead them to this job. So Sarah Lynn's case, it's, my sales background has been blah, 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 blah. You're going to skip, Sarah Lynn, you would skip right over the federal government thing. Or at least if you mention it, you just mention it in 2 words, but you don't emphasize that, right? And Dan, in your case, I know your background, right? Advocacy and this and that and Safari. You would have to puddle jump through. So for example, this is the Safari thing or the environmental thing, for as long as I can remember, I've punctuated my background with this, and make sure that everything you say has a golden thread right through it, where you're not wavering off.
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with doing those things, and this is the one which I had raised with you earlier this week about. This is that company I had been a finalist for earlier this year. Mm-hmm. Through a different recruiter, went through multiple rounds, met the whole government relations team. Position itself is very similar, if not identical, but I don't know for sure to what I had previously advanced very far in the process. Right. And again, it's a different recruiter, but they're giving me. I had reached out to her on LinkedIn just to sort of express how interested I was, and she's giving me a chance. And so now you made it clear that in this. Either in the 1 minute answer or the 1.5 minute answer, I need to specifically mention, yes, I've been here before. I've interviewed with you guys. Well,
I don't know if I would do that. I don't know if I would take the time to do that in the one or 1.5 minute, unless you can say it in a 1 sentence. Okay. You would need to tell somebody that. You need to tell the recruiter that, but it doesn't necessarily need to be in that video. I mean, you could say it if you can say it really quickly, that's fine. Script it out and see if you have enough time for it. That's fine. But I mean, at least verbally, the recruiter needs to know that you've previously applied.
Okay. Well, so then just what's your opinion? So basically before I have a 20-minute conversation with her a week from today. And before that, I need to submit this video cover letter. So are you suggesting in terms of that, referencing that previous experience, don't take the time in the cover letter, do it? I
wouldn't. You could actually even email her and say, just something that I want to just in full disclosure. And when you write her back, have the video attachment, right? Or some email just to let you know, and I'm happy to talk about this more with you on the call, just to let you know I have previously applied, to this organization, Just as long as she knows, as long as it's somewhere written or verbally. That's all. I don't know if I would take the time in the cover letter to do that, because the cover letter is not about your past with that organization. It's about your future with this position.
Okay, and then also just mention again, when I'll do that in the email when I send her the cover letter or whatever, but I'll mention that. But do I mention that I had heard, their fear was I was overqualified, or don't reference that?
I wouldn't reference it right then. I would talk her through it.
Okay.
So anything in email, just like, by the way, I previously applied to the organization. I'm happy to share more details when we talk.
Thank you. Great.
Keep it simple. Mary, you're on mute.
Okay, I had an interview this past week, and they said, okay, you have 17 minutes. We have 17 minutes, and we have 11 questions for you.
Wow.
And so as they asked the question, I would answer it as best as I knew to do. And then I would be like this. And most of the time I had to say, I'm done. But what is the best way to show that you're done? That's my question. Because we wasted a lot of time I was, pretty short, to the point.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was done, and I just kind of like.
You could, I don't know how it all flowed. Okay, so I can't be specific other than to say, if you feel like there's an awkward pause there, you can finish answering your question and say, did that answer your question? Did I address your question? And that'll show them that you're done.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I would pause and I was done. Does
that address your question?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. All right, other questions? Anyone else? Linda, did you want to share any questions here?
The only one I can think of off the top of my head, where's Jen Everhart been? I mean, nobody's really heard from her.
Oh yes, Jen's doing good. She wrote me, gosh, I don't know, not that long ago, just to say hello. I'm trying to remember what her situation is. I think she landed a role. I think.
Oh, good.
I don't quote me on that. I could be conflating her with somebody else. I think she did. Anyway, feel free.
Because I know she was looking
looking
for something else.
Yeah, feel free.
I've tried and I've never heard back from her. So
okay. She's as far as I know, she's doing good.
okay.
All right. Is that all? Any other questions? Okay, so we'll go ahead and wrap up here. And for those of you who'd like to stay on the prayer call, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, I wish everybody a happy new year and look forward to seeing you, Lord willing, next Friday, the 7th.
Thank you.